Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Tonight's film is 1977's Satan's Cheerleaders. This is 1977 Satan's Cheerleaders. And on the front here it says, "Come score with the cheerleaders. When these girls raise hell, there's the devil to pay." This is the back of the DVD. This is put out by VCI Entertainment. I believe this is the only DVD release of this film by VCI Entertainment, but it's a DVD-R, which did not know about, especially from the cover, and it wasn't even stated anywhere on here, but it is a DVD-R, just so you know, and it's put out by VCI, which is not a huge distribution company, but they got it out, and it doesn't look that bad. Satan's Cheerleaders. Okay, this is 1977's film here, and this actually has John Carradine in it, Yvonne DiCarlo, who was Lillian Munster, one of her last films, I believe, and it was written and directed by Graydon Clark. So let's get into this. This is a Graydon Clark production of Satan's Cheerleaders, and we're going to talk about this film a little bit here. Essentially, what we have here is a film that could never be marketed today in 2016 by any means. It's a film that wouldn't be at our cinemas, at our mainstream cinemas, and it's a film that they would just have the worst time in the world trying to market, and nobody would produce this film, okay? Because the title itself shows the dichotomy of this particular film. What we have is a bunch of cheerleaders and their adventures on the beach with a rival cheerleading team, and the play back and forth, and their boyfriends, and cheering, and spending days at the beach, and relaxing, and having sex, and having fun, and being young, and their cheerleading coach, who's, this innocent woman who's there to help them along the way through the 70s high school memories, and then we collide in this film with dark, occult, satanic elements and horror. How those two go together, I've never seen before in my entire life, but it happens in Satan's Cheerleaders. So, Satan's Cheerleaders is really a film that meshes genres. Again, I just had a review of a couple films like The Single Girls and Cheerleaders Wild Weekend. Well, here is another one. This is a film that mixes cheerleader beach sexploitation, teensploitation, with occult satanic horror of the 70s. Really, really interesting. This is a low-budget film, and it has that late 70s, low-budget vibe to it. Now, like I said, there's a lot of contrasts in this particular film because you're getting that kind of low-budget, late 70s cheerleader, beach, summer, teensploitation type of erotic film vibes. Those amazing, just those teen films, without a seeming plot per se, And then it collides with atmospheric 70s low budget late night watching occult horror. So very, very bizarre stuff going on here, and I'm gonna get into it first. Let's talk about the music in this particular film. The music in this film. We kickstart this film off with a disco song, and it sounds like the music in this film was made just for this film. I mean, again, they're not going to be using top songs off the radio at that time because the budget was, pretty darn low. But we start off this film with one disco song that plays throughout, it seems like the first 10 to 15 minutes of the film while things are going on in the film, and dialogue and everything else, and it keeps coming back, and the characters in the film will actually continue to cheer or make references to lyrics in that theme song. It almost reminded me at times to some of the music of Gas Pump Girls, which I've also reviewed on this YouTube page. We have a lot of disco music in this film during the times with the actual cheerleaders before the occult horror really collides in here, but it's so predominantly in the beginning and the end of the film. So you're getting some disco songs with vocals and lyrics and all that kind of stuff. So great disco songs that kind of, like I said, fill up the entire background that makes like the first 15, 20 minutes of the film seem like an introduction. It's this wild type of vibe to it. And then, of course, when we have the occult stuff, we also have this kind of late night 70s occult, atmospheric horror, low budget type of music, that's kind of, at times it feels kind of spacey in terms of not like spacey. That there's not a lot of music sometimes. Like sometimes you just hear drums, like marching drums, just going. It's like really bizarre how that happens sometimes. But of course, you have some scary type, low budget, orchestrated type 70s horror music. You know what I mean? Atmospheric, creepy, dark, and good stuff. And we have here a film that uses like some weird color palettes at times. I mean, we have red filling the screen, and then sometimes we just have particular characters at different moments of the film of the occult element of like just the character going like negative, that negative look. Where they kind of get like bright red orange and the background turns bright red orange and so there's like some really cool kind of editing effects and even lighting effects throughout the film. Now, this is a film where we also have very sunny, beachy, the ocean type of vibes, California looking type vibes. Also kind of thrown throughout here. Also the California kind of outskirts, it looks like sometimes, like the California deserts or something. This film, in its core, I mean, you're thinking this is a cheerleader film, so on and so forth, and it is, but it's low on the nudity scale. I mean, we mostly have breasts, and we do have butts for the people who like butts out there. We do have a lot of like kind of butt shots, but this is a film that really, it's mostly nudity from one particular girl, the lead girl in the film with long blonde hair. This is a film in particular that really has a strong vibe of sexuality in the film, a strong vibe of sexploitation in the film, without a lot of nudity per se. You understand? You catch my drift here. This is a film that really has a lot of the sexploitation. This is an example of a film that is sexploitation that has a strong erotic sexual vibe running throughout it, and even some dialogue as well. Although I don't even think there was any cursing per se. Without a lot of nudity, without a lot of explicit sexuality. It forms itself mostly on the cheerleaders' short skirts, their panties, their legs, their thighs, that kind of vibe in there. So this is an example of a sexploitation film like that has that sexuality without a ton of nudity. So it's very interesting. Now, we have perverted characters in this particular film. We have satanic characters. We have low-budget set pieces. We have Doberman pinchers who are named, I believe, Lucifer and Diablo. We really have some very... We have some campy elements in here. We have some satanic monks that get confused at times whether or not they're Satanists or Christians. I mean, it's very like there's times where it feels campy, and of course there's times where you have that beach vibe, but then there's times where it's just flat out chanting occult satanic horror. There is a high energy in the non-horror sections of this film, the cheerleader sections of this film, the beach sections of this film, the teen sex comedy sections of this film. There's a high caliber of almost 50s energy. There's like this energy in their dialogue. It almost reminds me of like a Quentin Tarantino film at times, especially in the first 15 minutes with the disco music playing in the background. But they're just delivering their lines like it has like this rhythm, it has like this musicality. Some people might be really annoyed at it, it's beautiful. I mean, it's that total teen exploitation vibe that even doesn't feel totally late 70s at times. It almost feels a little bit 50s, 60s at times. And you have kind of like that rival cheerleading teams at the beginning of the movie, and they're hanging out on the beach, and they like their guys, and they got to get ready for the football game and stuff like that. I mean, it's like very bizarre how that stuff plays out in its collision with satanic horror. Okay, you understand? This is what really makes this film not marketable. I mean, people who like horror, it's not going to be horror enough. They're going to be like, "What is this? All this beach crap with no plot." And people who love cheerleader beach sexploitation type films are going to be like, "This is awesome," but holy crap, it got too dark. It got too horror. And at its core, this film is mostly looked at as a horror film. It's mostly looked at as a teen horror film from the late 70s. That's what people mostly look at it. But to just write it off like that is really not looking at its complexities. I mean, because there are many, many complexities. This is a film that not only has complexities in the genres and the storylines, but also in the fact that there's this innocence in the film. There's like this seeming innocence in this film that collides with a lack of innocence and an eroticism and kind of a dark, evil horror. And there are a couple violent sections in this film as well. I mean, nothing like crazy, but there's a couple violent scenes in this particular film as well to escalate the horror, which makes it so much more schizophrenic in how it's playing off and what this film is. So it's very, very interesting, and I've never really seen a film like this before. And anybody who's ever taken the cheerleader genre and made it a cult, that is a really, really interesting thing. Now we have like I said, we have suspense, we have mystery vibes. At times it reminded me of what Rob Zombie did in a modern world with Lords of Salem in the satanic chanting and I mean, it really was, it did some pretty wild things, and the chanting kept going on and on and on, and it almost started to pervade your mind, and it started to creep you out, and it started to freak you out, and especially if it's late at night, and it just has that kind of vibe. We have black masses in here. We do have black masses in here. I mean, this is really like satanic horror, but with a cheerleader bent. There's elements of this film that reminded me of the 70s film Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Yes, I said it. Satan's Cheerleaders reminds me of Let's Scare Jessica to Death at times. And this is also a film that's really, really interesting in the aspect that it involves sports, football as well. I mean, not heavily, but especially near the end of the film. So how do you take a film that mixes black masses, beach fun, and football, and cheerleaders? This is that film. This is Satan's Cheerleaders. Football and occult horror? What? Football and I just said vibes of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. What's going on here? This is Satan's Cheerleaders, folks. 1977's Graydon Clark's Satan's Cheerleaders. You can get this for cheap. I think the VHSs are harder to find, the VHS copies, but the DVD copies, and this amazing artwork right there. That's just awesome, awesome artwork. And each cheerleader has their name written on their chest, like in the film Cheerleaders, which I also reviewed on this YouTube page. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films that need to be talked about more, I think. Please feel free to check out all the other reviews on this page and my own personal films at youtube.com/poopydiarrhea. Thank you and good night.